Hey everybody, hopefully all of you are doing well. Today we're going to be making a super easy pot roast recipe in the crock pot. This comfort food recipe is perfect for Sunday dinners, a cool fall night, or a hassle-free date night meal. Let's get into it. So let's start this recipe off by chopping up our celery. I already did our onions and our garlic and some rosemary. And I'm going to be grabbing an ingredient that I didn't use the last time I made this recipe. Is some kale, and I've also used mustard greens. Any type of dark leafy green, go ahead and use maybe about 3 cups. To shave the carrots, I'm going to be using the same tool that I used before in another video to shred some carrots and some other vegetables. And everybody asked me where I got it from. Well, it was a gift. And so I didn't know exactly where it came from. One of those companies like Pampered Chef. So I'm going to put the link down below so you guys can order it on Amazon. But you can see it's dual-sided, and on the other side it's just a peeler. It's a vegetable peeler, and you can hold the vegetable and the peeler in a way that's more comfortable for you. I've been asked why I cut my vegetables on a slant, or what it's called on the bias. It's because it's just presentation. That's all it is. You just want to make sure you cut them in big enough pieces. You notice everything that I'm putting in there is chopped pretty big, 2 inches or so, because this dish is going to cook for quite some time. So I'm just going to put everything in the crock pot insert, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of seasoning over all of the vegetables. I might as well go ahead and get that out of the way. For the exact measurements to this recipe, be sure and check out gdseasoning.com. The link is below in the description. I have 3.5 pounds of beef pot roast, and what I'm doing is I'm showing you the connective tissue. What I've found in the past few times I've made this recipe is removing that and some of the excess fat on the outside really helps the recipe along. Now you don't have to do this, but I've just found that cutting all that out just makes for a much leaner pot roast. And here's a shot of what I've done in the past. I've used it, just left it whole and cooked it. But once I start to trim and really take off that excess fat on the outside and that connective tissue, it just leaves the meat to cook and just fall apart. It's absolutely beautiful once it's done cooking. So I just take the time and trim that apart. Like I said, you don't have to, but it just makes for a better product on the end. Trimming this little bit of excess fat and connective tissue from the pot roast is not going to hurt it at all. Pot roast is a beautiful cut of meat because it's marbled with fat. That's why it's so nice and soft and gushy when you touch it. That's fat. I'm just seasoning it up with some leftover seasoning actually that I had from the tailgating video that I did. So that's a little bit of barbecue seasoning in there. It's still good. I'm using it, and I'm just browning the meat on each side. Browning the meat helps add a layer of flavoring that you wouldn't normally get if you skip the step. Can you skip the step? Sure you can, but I don't. Here I'm just going to take a little bit of the stock that I have, beef stock, and I'm just going to deglaze the skillet and get those little juicy tidbits up so they can be added to our slurry for the gravy. The slurry is what's going to help the pot roast make a gravy as it cooks. So I'm going to my blender, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of vegetable stock or beef stock and 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour and those pan drippings. I hurt my hand. I'm not whisking today. Okay, so we're just going to put it in the blender and let it get all nice and smooth. And then we're just going to pour that right over the vegetables in the crock pot. Another thing about cooking pot roast covered like this in a crock pot is going to make its own liquid and juices. We only have 1.5 cups of stock in this total recipe. So watch where the level is now as we start, and then you'll see where the level of gravy and juices is at the end. We're going to cook it covered, of course, this is a crock pot, for about 6 hours on high. Or you can do low for about 12 hours. That's going to give this beef so much tenderness and juiciness. This is just at the 3-hour mark. More often than not, I get questions about, Carolyn, what's a good date night meal? Well, here you go right here. You can go ahead and prep this, get it going in the slow cooker, and then you can go get yourself ready. Guys, here's a little tip from me to you. You need 4 basic things to come to the table to be able to eat this meal. Number 1, a job. Number 2, your own place. Number 3, decent credit. And number 4, the ability to cook a lady a little something when it's your turn to cook for her. Ain't nothing like a man that can cook. Ladies, go ahead, beat your face, put your little dress on, get all cute, and go ahead and serve him some of this so you can go and get that ring and tell me where you registered. As you can see, this recipe comes together absolutely beautifully. It's easy to make and it's easy to serve. Your gravy is nice and lush. It just falls over the fluffy mashed potatoes, or you can even make rice. And you can serve it with a side salad and you're good to go. Thanks so much for coming and cooking with me. You know I appreciate it when you come and hang out. Don't forget this recipe and others can be found at gdseasoning.com. And I'll see you guys next time.